It's the silence that gets you, isn't it? That's usually how it starts.
Hmm.
I think we're all programmed by movies, by novels, maybe even our own, dramatic instincts to expect relationships to end with an event, a bang.
Right. A big
A
moment.
screaming match in a parking lot, a tearful conversation at a coffee shop, or I don't know, at least a text message that says, I can't do this anymore.
Right. We expect punctuation. We expect a period at the end of the sentence.
Exactly. We want the period. But what we are unpacking today is what happens when there's no punctuation at all. The sentence just trails off.
It just fades.
The relationship doesn't break, it thins, the plans for next month stop happening, the daily texts become weekly check-ins, you can physically feel the future evaporating from the room.
It's a terrifying feeling. It's the loss of momentum.
It is, and usually the advice you get from your friends, your mom, or the internet is simple. Walk away, have some self-respect, and leave.
Of course.
But today, we're looking at the people who don't. We're looking at a specific, very human phenomenon. Falling into a habit of using sex not for passion and not for fun, but as a survival mechanism to keep that connection on life support.
It's a heavy topic, but it's one that I think a lot of people will recognize even if they've never admitted it out loud because it feels shameful.
Yeah.
To help us navigate this, we're doing a deep dive into a really striking essay by the writer and philosopher Pedro Malha. It's titled Sex as a Way of Staying in Someone's Life.
And just to set the stage for you listening, this isn't a dating advice column. Maha isn't telling you how to get them back in 10 days.
No, not at all.
This is a philosophical look at why we trade our pride for presence. It's about the fear of erasure. So let's get into it. What is the core mechanism Mala is describing here? Because he's very specific that this isn't just friends with benefits.
No, it's distinct from that. Friends with benefits implies a certain lightness, doesn't it? A breezy, no-strings agreement where both parties are kind of shrugging and having fun. What Mala describes is much heavier. It's weighed down by history. He starts by identifying the shift. He talks about how a relationship changes texture before it actually ends. He uses this phrase that really stuck with me. The future stops being implied.
That is such a devastating observation. The future stops being implied. I think we've all felt that.
Think about what that means practically. In a growing relationship, every interaction has a trajectory. If I see you on Tuesday, it's implied we might see each other on Friday.
Right.
If I leave my toothbrush at your place, it's implied it will be there next week. We are building a structure.
Yeah.
In this thinning phase, the structure collapses.
Yeah.
The trajectory stops. But, and this is the crux of Mala's essay, the contact continues.
But the contact changes function. It's no longer building anything.
Completely. Mala argues that in this specific window of time, this twilight zone between the relationship and the breakup sex stops being about hunger or desire in the traditional sense. It stops being about exploring the other person.
So what does it become?
Instead, it becomes strategic.
Now, when you say strategic, that sounds manipulative, like you're plotting something, like you're trying to trap them.
And Mala is careful to correct that assumption. It's not strategic like a game of chess where you're trying to win or conquer the other person.
Okay.
It's strategic like building a shelter during a storm. It's survival. He calls it proof of continued relevance.
Proof of continued relevance. That hits hard. Proof that you still matter.
Proof that you are not yet a memory. See, if you start sleeping with them and you aren't having deep emotional conversations anymore, what are you? You're the past.
You're an ex.
You're an ex. By continuing the physical side, you force your way into their present tense. You are physically taking up space in their timeline, in their bed, in their Tuesday night.
It's a resistance against being replaced by absence. That really struck me when I read the source material. It's this idea that I would rather be here in this diminished physical way than simply be gone.
Exactly.
Right.
Mala touches on something existential here. It's the fear of erasure. It's not just, I miss him or I miss her. It's, if I am not in their life, I am nowhere.
Wow.
It's an ontological crisis as much as a romantic one.
Which brings up the question of self-deception. I think the easy critique here, the thing your friends would scream at you over brunch, is that you're delusional. They're just using you. Wake up. They don't love you anymore.
Right.
But Mala flips that, doesn't he?
He does. This is one of the most insightful parts of the essay. He argues that people in this situation aren't confused at all. They aren't walking around with their eyes closed thinking everything is fine. In
Fresh.
fact, they are operating with a painful, razor-sharp clarity.
Yeah.
They have recognized the limitations of the relationship perfectly.
So it's not denial.
It's the opposite of denial.
Yeah.
They've realized that asking for more isn't an option.
Mm.
If they were to sit down and say, I need commitment, I need emotional intimacy, I need to know where this is going, the other person would leave. They know that. They also know that if they pull back, the drift will accelerate and it'll be over. So they recognize that sex is the only compromise available.
Ah.
It allows continuity without confrontation.
So it's not that they think sex will magically fix it. It's that they know sex is the only thing preventing the end.
Precisely. It's a stalemate. Mala calls it a negotiated settlement. You are accepting the terms of engagement because the alternative is the void. You are negotiating with reality.
This leads us to that metaphor Mala uses, which I found so helpful for visualizing this, the permission slip.
Yes, the permission slip.
Break that down for us. How does sex function as a permission slip? Because usually we think of sex as the main event, not a ticket to something else.
So if you strip away the romance and just look at the mechanics of this dynamic, the sexual act isn't really about the act. It's about access.
Access.
It grants you the right to still be in the room, to still be held, to still be a witness to their life, to ask, how was your day while you're putting your shoes back on?
It's the price of admission.
It is. And the tragedy, of course, is the difference between access and intimacy. You are getting access to their body and their time, but you aren't getting intimacy in the sense of being known or prioritized. You're basically paying a toll to stay on the road, even though the road isn't going anywhere.
I want to push on the psychology of the person agreeing to this toll, because from the outside, it looked like a total lack of self-respect. We've all seen friends do this, and we want to shake them. We say, have some dignity. You're better than this.
And that is the word Malha spends a lot of time unpacking. Dignity.
Right, because usually we define dignity as walking away, flipping the table. I deserve better. That's the movie version of dignity.
Yeah, that's the girl power or the alpha move.
Exactly.
That's the Hollywood version. It's loud, it's empowered, and it feels good to watch. But Malha suggests there is a quieter dignity involved here. He calls it the choice of presence over principle.
Presence over principle. That is such a sticky phrase. Unpack that for me.
Well, it challenges our judgment. Mala writes that sometimes the choice to stay in a reduced form, to accept the crumbs, if you will, isn't about weakness. It's about a deep human humility. It's saying, I value this connection enough to reshape myself to fit inside it, even if it hurts.
It's prioritizing the us, even a broken us over the I.
Yes. And Mala admits this isn't always healthy. It's often not brave in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
But he argues it is deeply human. It's a negotiation with reality where you say, I will take this shape because taking this shape allows us to still exist.
The dignity of endurance.
The dignity of endurance.
But staying in that shape, that has to be exhausting. You can't just relax into a relationship like that. You can't just be yourself. You're constantly walking on eggshells.
Eggshells implies you're afraid they'll get mad. Malha describes it more as a holding pattern.
Okay.
And the exhaustion comes from what he calls emotional temperature control.
Oh, I loved this concept. The idea that you have to modulate every interaction.
Think about the energy that takes. You are in bed with someone you love, or at least care for deeply, but who is pulling away. You have to keep the encounter at the exact right temperature.
Right.
If you're too cold, the sex feels transactional and hollow. If it feels like a business deal, they might lose interest or feel used.
But if you're too warm...
If you're too warm, if you look at them with too much love, or try to cuddle for too long afterwards, or bring up a plan for next weekend, you risk spooking them.
Oh, yeah.
You risk making it feel like a relationship again. And if you do that, they might pull the ripcord. So you are constantly monitoring yourself. Am I being too distant? Am I being too needy?
It's a state of constant low-level vigilance.
It is.
Malha uses the phrase managed meaning. You have to manage the meaning of the act so it doesn't spill over into demands.
Which is incredibly difficult because, as the essay points out, meaning seeps in regardless. This isn't two strangers passing in the night.
Of course not.
There is what Mala calls the tenderness of familiarity. Your bodies know each other, you have a shared history, you have inside jokes.
That's the trap, isn't it? If it were just cold, mechanical sex, you could probably walk away easier. But it's warm.
It's warm.
It's just a contained warmth, like a bonfire in a jar. You have to keep the lid on tight or it burns the house down. But if you choke it too much, the fire goes out.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And keeping that lid on is what drains you. It's the effort of holding back the natural flow of the relationship.
Mm.
Malha points out that this holding pattern is actually a form of mutual avoidance.
It takes two to stall.
Exactly. And this is important. Malha doesn't paint the other person as a villain. He says this dynamic is an agreement.
Okay.
One person is avoiding the vulnerability of asking for more. The other person, the one who's pulling away, is avoiding the responsibility of offering it.
So sex becomes the buffer zone.
It becomes the space where that avoidance lives. It's a silent treaty. I won't ask where we're going if you don't tell me to leave.
Which brings us to the emotional core of the essay for me, the grief. Because this is a grieving process, but it's a weird one. Malha calls it grief without ceremony.
This was the concept that really unlocked the piece for me. Usually, grief has a marker, a funeral, a breakup text, a Facebook status change.
Right.
You can call your friends and say, it's over, and they bring you ice cream. Here, there is no event.
Yeah.
You aren't grieving something that has died. You are grieving something that is no longer becoming.
No longer becoming. That's haunting.
You're grieving the loss of potential, the future that used to hover between you, the trips you were going to take, the life you were building. That has quietly receded. But because the body is still there, because the sex is still happening, you aren't allowed to mourn it publicly. You can't grieve someone who is still in your bed on Friday nights.
Yeah.
The structure of the sexual relationship allows you to pretend the loss hasn't happened yet.
It's a ghost story. You're haunting your own relationship. You're loyal to a version of the connection that doesn't exist anymore.
Malha calls that misplaced loyalty. It's not loyalty to the person sitting in front of you, the one who can't commit.
Right.
It's loyalty to the memory of who you were together. He argues that leaving feels like a betrayal of that past investment. If you walk away, you're admitting that all that history is over. By staying, even in this reduced way, you are validating the past. You're saying, see, we're still us, we're still here.
But are you? That's the dissonance. Malha talks about the specific pain of being wanted only in this way. It's such a paradox for the listener to wrap their head around.
It really is.
You feel attracted, right?
Yeah.
You're being chosen physically, but you're being kept at arm's length emotionally.
It's a dual state of being affirmed and diminished simultaneously. That's why it messes with your head. The act of sex says, I want you. The context says, but only this much.
Right.
You are valued, but you are replaceable.
Yeah.
You are present, but you are peripheral.
And Malha points out that sex usually acts as scaffolding for intimacy. It's how you build closeness. Here, the scaffolding is up, but there's no building behind it. It's just a facade.
And living behind a facade is incredibly lonely. But again, we have to go back to the alternative. Why do people stay in this dissonance?
Yeah.
Why do we torture ourselves like this?
Yeah.
Malha circles back to that acute awareness of disappearance.
The fear that without this contact, the history becomes inert.
Yes. If we stop touching the shared jokes, the memories, the intimacy, they just drift away into the ether. They have no home.
Wow.
As long as there is contact, that history feels active. Malha calls this hope through proximity.
Hope through proximity. Is that false hope?
Not necessarily false, but maybe stubborn. It's the idea that if I just stay on the threshold long enough, the door might reopen. Malha says this isn't born of stupidity, it's born of memory. You remember when the door was open. You remember when you were welcome inside. So you stand there waiting for a draft.
That is tragic. Standing at a closed door, waiting for a breeze.
It is. But I want to reiterate one of Malha's most important points. There are no villains here.
I'm glad you brought that up again, because it is so easy to paint the person who won't commit as the bad guy, the user, the commitment phobe.
And Malha refuses to do that. He views this whole dynamic as a human response to constraint. It's a compromise shaped by limitation.
Okay.
One person offers what they can, which might just be sex and partial presence. That might be all they have to give right now emotionally. The other person accepts what is offered because it's better than the void.
It's not malicious deception, it's just sadness.
No, it's just two people trying to navigate loss without ending. It's a clumsy, painful attempt to solve an emotional equation that doesn't have a clean answer.
So how does Malha conclude this? Does he give us a way out? A 3 steps to finding your self-worth guide? Because I think the listener might be desperate for a solution here.
No, and I think that's why this essay is so powerful. It resists the self-help urge to fix it. The ending is unresolved. Malha leaves us with the tension between the desire for presence and the need for self-protection.
He talks about life continuing in an unfinished form.
Yes, He suggests that sex in this context is neither salvation nor failure.
Hmm?
It just is. It's a way of staying when leaving feels like annihilation.
Right.
You can know it's not enough, you can be fully aware it's a bad idea, and still choose it.
That validates the experience so much more than judgment does. The idea that you can be smart and aware and still choose the bad thing because you are human and you are terrified of the silence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It reclaims the humanity in a choice that is often judged as pathetic. It frames it as an act of endurance.
So if we take a step back and look at the mission of this deep dive,
Yeah.
what is the takeaway for the listener? If someone is listening to this and realizing, oh my God, I am in the holding pattern right now, what does Mala offer them?
I think he offers compassion. Compassion for oneself, recognizing that if you are using sex to stay in someone's life, it's not because you have no dignity.
Yeah.
It's because you're trying to answer a very hard question. How do I lose this person without losing myself?
It validates the pain. It's not just hooking up. It's a grief process in disguise.
A stalled
Oh.
grief process. And maybe, just maybe, by naming it, by calling it grief without ceremony, you can start to see it for what it is. And once you see it, you might be able to decide if the permission slip is still worth the price of admission.
That's a powerful thought, that by naming the thinning, you might finally be able to face the ending, or at least understand why you've been avoiding it.
Right. It moves the conversation from what is wrong with me to what am I grieving?
As we wrap up this deep dive into Pedro Malha's work, I'm left thinking about that idea of the trace. We're so obsessed with closure in our culture. We want clean breaks. We want the block and delete. We want to burn the photos.
We want the narrative to be tidy. We want a clear ending so the next chapter can begin.
But life isn't tidy. Malha forces us to confront the fact that sometimes we choose the mess because the clean break feels too much like death.
Sometimes the trace is all we can handle. And sometimes we cling to that trace until we are strong enough to let go.
So here's a final thought for you to mull over today. We talk a lot about ghosting as the ultimate modern sin leaving without a trace. But what about the opposite? What about becoming a ghost within the relationship just so you don't have to leave? Mala asks us to consider, is remaining as a trace of a connection better than a clean break? Or is it just the slowest, most painful way to say goodbye?
That is the question.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.